This is Father Christopher Etheridge, missionary in Italy, and today is April 12th, Friday of the second week of Easter. Our Gospel today comes from John 6, 1-15. Jesus went across the Sea of Galilee. A large crowd followed him because they saw the signs he was performing on the sick. Jesus went up on the mountain, and there he sat down with his disciples. The Jewish feast of Passover was near. When Jesus raised his eyes and saw that a large crowd was coming to him, he said to Philip, "Where can we buy enough food for them to eat?" He said this to test him, because he himself knew what he was going to do. Philip answered him, 200 days' wages worth of food would not be enough for each of them to have a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, the brother of Simon Peter, said to him, "There is a boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what good are these for so many?" Jesus said, "Have the people recline." Now there was a great deal of grass in that place. So the men reclined, about 5,000 in number. Then Jesus took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed them to those who were reclining, and also as much of the fish as they wanted. When they had had their fill, he said to his disciples, "Gather the fragments left over, so that nothing will be wasted." So they collected them, and filled 12 wicker baskets with fragments, from the 5 barley loaves that had been more than they could eat. When the people saw the sign he had done, they said, "This is truly the prophet, the one who is to come into the world." Since Jesus knew that they were going to come and carry him off to make him king, he withdrew again to the mountain alone. The Gospel of the Lord. Where do you like to go to get away from the busyness of life? In the Gospels, Jesus has 2 preferred places of repose, mountains and gardens. Today we find him with his disciples in the first place, that is, on a mountain. It is a rather simple scene. Jesus seated with his disciples on the mountaintop. But in its simplicity, we find a wealth of good examples. In fact, there are 2 things in particular that Jesus models for us: maturity and dedication. First, says St. Thomas, we can see his maturity. Jesus is not distracted by what does not concern him, but is appropriately concerned with his disciples. He is not like those spoken of in Proverbs 30:13 that says, "A generation whose eyes are proud," or like those mentioned in Sirach 19:27, "A man's dress and laughter and his walk show what he is." The temptation to be men and women focused only on ourselves, our careers, our looks, our influence, our status, etc., is an especially strong one today. Thus, we need to learn from Jesus what a mature Christian really looks like. He is a man for God and others, concerned about God's needs and the needs of others before his own. Secondly, we should note that Christ did not sit there with his disciples out of laziness. He was looking right at them, teaching them carefully and attracting their hearts to himself. Besides the temptation to worldly self-love, the temptation to laziness is also a prevalent one today. I think there are 2 reasons why this temptation is so tantalizing today. First, because we are disordered in our affections. That is, instead of loving God above all things and all things in God, we spend ourselves loving many other things for themselves alone. These disordered affections not only cause us to waste our time, but they also sap us of our spiritual energy for virtuous living. St. John of the Cross uses 2 examples to help us understand this. He writes, "As hot water, when uncovered, readily loses heat, and as aromatic spices, when they are unwrapped, gradually lose the fragrance and strength of their perfume, even so the soul that is not recollected in one single desire for God loses heat and vigor in its virtue." Thus, if we want to overcome our laziness, not only do we need to work against self-love, but also against disordered loves. Jesus loves perfectly, so as to teach us how to love perfectly. And the attractiveness of his power is that he can do so simply, seated with his disciples on top of a mountain. Take some time to join Jesus on that mountaintop today in prayer. Make yourself one more disciple in the crowd. Watch him, listen to him, and learn from him. May God bless you, and may Mother Mary show you the way.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed hearing the gospel and homily, I invite you to share it with someone you know who may also find it rewarding, and also to subscribe to the Catholic Voice channel. Please see in the description below if you would like to receive a text message for each daily gospel and homily. Please also keep our missionary priests throughout the world in your prayers. Thank you, and God bless.